Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to welcome our guest speaker today, who is Dr. Hisham Al-Alawi. He is the ambassador of Iraq to South Africa. He has been in South Africa for the past 3 years. And his topic today is understanding the current crisis in Iraq and its geopolitical context.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى الأمين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين وجميع عباد الله الصالحين. Dear brothers and sisters, السلام من الله عليكم ورحمة وبركاته. It gives me great pleasure to join you on this holiday as we prepare to receive the holy month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you all health and guidance to perform your fasting in the best possible way, but also to benefit from the rich environment of the holy month, to connect with His Almighty, to do your prayers and your du'as, and to recite the Holy Book as much as possible, and to reach out to other members of the community, family, especially the vulnerable and the poor members of the community. قال تعالى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. As we prepare to receive the holy month of Ramadan, it's important to spend a few minutes to reflect on what are we supposed to achieve from the holy month of Ramadan. Because those of us who are familiar with the teachings of Quran and Islam and have practiced this important act of worship, fasting, know that it's one of the most important tools that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet have used in order to help us reach the goals that have been drawn for us as human beings. If we go back and look at the verses of the Holy Book and the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we will find that in general there were 3 important goals at the individual level, and there were 3 important goals at the community society level. For individuals as followers of the divine religion of Islam and the great man, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we are supposed to learn from the book and from the Prophet. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. One of the important goals at the individual level is to give you knowledge, provide you with knowledge that would help you with achieving the other important goals, which are yuzakkihim, to purify yourself, get rid of those negative attributes, characters, akhlaq, and embrace the positive attitudes and display them on a daily basis in your interaction with your family members, with the community members, and so on. And the word yuzakkihim has been mentioned in different parts of the Holy Book. The third important goal at the individual level is to show you how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which will help you to strengthen your connection with Him. And obviously one of the important acts of worship is fasting. And if we look carefully, we would find that the verse that I recited, كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم, mentioned one important goal, outcome for this act of worship, لعلكم تتقون, which contains all the important goals that I have referred to. Being true muttaqi means that you have knowledge. You have managed to purify yourself. You have strong connections with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And fasting is supposed to help us achieve all that. And in order to do so, you should be careful not to just focus on the fact that you are hungry, feeling hungry or thirsty. You need to benefit from this important training course which lasts for a month to get as much as possible. And in order to do so, you need to recite the Holy Book, which will help you to enhance your knowledge. You need to do extra prayers, you need to do du'as, which will strengthen your link with His Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to reach out to other members of the community, which will help you to be a better human being. At the community society level, there are three important goals that have been mentioned, which include establishing social justice, avoiding divisions and conflicts, and using the available resources to build civilizations which will look after all the members of the communities and societies. And again, in order to do that, we need to focus on achieving the goals that we mentioned at the individual levels. If we do that, we become better individuals, and better individuals lead to better communities and better societies. If we look further, we will find that one of the most important sources of information to help us understand the relevance of all these things that I referred to is the famous speech that the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave on a Friday during one of the years before the month of Ramadan arrives. Many of you probably have read the speech. It's not a long speech, and it's very rich with its meanings. The Prophet has said, أيها الناس قد أقبل إليكم شهر الله بالخير والبركة والرحمة شهر هو عند الله أفضل الشهور وأيامه أفضل الأيام ولياليه أفضل الليالي وساعاته أفضل الساعات شهر دعيتم فيه إلى ضيافة الله وجعلتم فيه من أهل كرامة الله. The Prophet brings to our attention that we should really benefit from this opportunity. We have been invited to become the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And being the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means that we should expect a lot of rewards, but in order to achieve that, we should behave accordingly in His presence subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he goes on and invites us to do what? In addition to doing our fasting well, he brings our attention to the importance of doing our prayers well, doing du'as, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Him for forgiveness, asking Him to release us from hell, asking Him to help us to achieve the goals that I referred to at the individual and society level. And then he goes on and stresses the importance of linking with the Holy Book. And he gives us a very good indication as to why we should recite the Holy Book more and more. Reciting a verse in the month of Ramadan is equal to reciting many verses outside the month of Ramadan. But it's also important not just to recite and stop there. It's important to understand the meanings, to digest the meanings, and more importantly, to display the teachings of the Quran in our behavior. In addition to that, there has been a specific mention of reaching out to our parents, to our wives, husbands, to our children, to our relatives, to all the community members, and in particular the vulnerable members of the community and the poor members of the community. So one of the best times to do so, the Masjid Al-Rahman, and to give charity is the month of Ramadan. And you should not just wait until you get to the night of Eid and you give zakat al-fitra. No, you should try your best also to give as much as possible during this month. And also, there has been a special emphasis on inviting mu'mineen, Muslimin, to have iftar with you. And some of the believers have told the Prophet, peace be upon him, that we cannot afford to do that, or we cannot afford to invite too many people. He said, well, you can, even if you just provide them with the basics, some water, yogurt, and dates, you will get the enormous rewards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that we'll give to people who follow His teachings. And then towards the end, he focuses more on the importance of displaying the right akhlaq and ethics. And he says, if you are genuinely interested in securing your future on the day of judgment, pay special attention to your akhlaq. And you need to start obviously at the family level, how you interact with your parents, with your wives, husbands, with your children, and then go beyond that to other relatives and other members of the community. And remember that in Islam, we have been told that we should address other human beings on the basis of either they are our brothers and sisters in Islam, in religion, or they are our brothers and sisters in humanity. So the fact that they are not Muslims does not mean that we are not required to be caring and kind and interacting with them in a good way. So please forgive me, I can't spend more time on this aspect. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all to do our fasting in the best possible way and to benefit from this rich environment, to connect with Him, to do our prayers in a good way, to benefit from the opportunity to link with Him, to do supplications, and to get forgiveness, and more importantly to link with the Holy Book and to display the teachings of the Holy Book and the Prophet in our behaviors. Let me say now a few words about the situation in Iraq. Many of you know that Iraq obviously is an important country in the world. It's an important country when it comes to the history of Islam. Baghdad was the capital of the Islamic State for many centuries. Kufa was the capital during the time of the fourth Caliph, Imam Ali alayhi salam. There are many important masjids and historical sites in Baghdad the average Muslim will connect with. And Iraq is also a rich country, rich with its resources, rich with its natural as well as human resources. Unfortunately, due to a combination of wrong policies, dictatorship, meaningless wars, sanctions, American invasion, occupation, followed by the many mistakes, and the terrorist activities that the Iraqi society has been suffering from over the past decade, major aspects of life in Iraq have been affected. In the past few years, the Iraqis have been trying to put things back to order. And we approved, the Iraqis have voted on a new constitution that has many similarities with the one that we had here in South Africa in 2005. And our political religious leaders, with support from the people, have prepared the grounds for the complete withdrawal of the American forces that happened in 2011. And things were moving in the right directions in terms of security. The levels of attacks and casualties have been going down from 2009 to 2012. The economy has been moving in the right direction. The Iraqis became familiar with the democratic principles. We had several general elections, provincial elections that had an excellent turnout, including the recent elections on the 30th of April, a week before the general elections here in South Africa. The elections that we had were very successful. The overall participation rate was very good. It reached 63% of all those that were eligible to vote and 73% of those that registered to vote, almost similar to the good turnout that we had here in South Africa. And people were hoping that the elections and the results of the elections will prepare the grounds to have a more effective, accountable, inclusive parliament and government that would address the challenges that the Iraqi society faces due to the factors that I mentioned. Unfortunately, during the second week of June, on the 8th of June, some extremist terrorists that represent what we call ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, or Iraq and Syria, supported by some people that are loyal to the former Ba'athist regime, some that were part of his intelligence and security apparatus, joined together and managed to control first the city of Mosul, which is the second largest city in Iraq, and then went down to Tikrit. And obviously on the way they also controlled some of the smaller towns and villages. Those of you who know ISIS, their ideology of hatred, their brutal crimes in not only in Iraq but in Syria and other parts of the world, know that these people are not interested in establishing good governance or democracy or respecting human rights or displaying the teachings of Islam that we all are familiar with, including the ones that I referred to earlier. So in the first 2 weeks, unfortunately, various reports from the Iraqi sources as well as the UN Human Rights High Commission indicate that those extremists, brutal terrorists, have killed at least 1,000 to 2,000 of innocent Iraqis. These were people from different backgrounds, men and women, children and elderly people, Muslims and non-Muslims, Christians, Shias and Sunnis, civilians and soldiers that were not fighting, and so on. They have also attacked some of the important historical, cultural sites in Mosul and beyond, and destroyed some of our rich heritage in those cities. Now, the good thing is, despite the enormous challenge, obviously, and the risk, the threat that it represented to Iraq's sovereignty and well-being of its citizens, the response from our people and our religious leaders was overwhelming. People came forward and volunteered to join the army and the security forces to defend their nation, to defend themselves, to defend their cities, to defend their properties, and so on. And we have seen some restructuring of the Iraqi army security forces, and we have recaptured some of the cities and towns that have been taken by those extremists and terrorists. We are very confident that in the next days and weeks we will overcome this crisis and we will succeed in bringing together different groups, ethnic, religious groups, political groups, that have managed to get seats in the parliament. We are expecting the first session of the parliament to happen next Tuesday on the 1st of July, during which it is likely that the new speaker and his or her two deputies, as well as the president, the two vice presidents, will be selected, and the new president will ask the nominee of the largest bloc to start the process of forming a new government, which we all hope to see as an inclusive, representative, effective, accountable government that will adopt programs and policies to address not only the security challenge, but also the other challenges, and to improve people's lives, healthcare, education, services, and to build on the good work that has been done in the past 5-6 years. I would like to use this opportunity to clarify two important points, and I would be grateful if you pay attention to what I say. Unfortunately, many foreign media, representatives and personnel and so on, have tried to present those that are members of ISIS or ISIL as Sunni jihadists or as Sunni fighters and so on. I don't think we are doing justice to Islam, Muslims, or Sunnis, or any other groups in Islam if we accept this label given to these people who have shown very clearly that they don't respect Islamic teachings, they don't respect Quranic teachings, they don't respect the prophetic teachings, and they are responsible, they have been responsible, and they have committed the most atrocious crimes that we could think of. And these were committed not against non-Muslims only, Muslims and non-Muslims, not against Shias only, Shias and Sunnis. You might be interested to know that in the first 2 weeks, 14 prominent scholars, Sunni scholars, in the city of Mosul and Tikrit were killed because they refused to give allegiance to those extremists. So they definitely do not represent Islam, they then represent the teachings of Quran and the Prophet, and they definitely do not represent the approaches and the attitudes and behaviors that we know an ordinary Muslim will display. The second important, before I move to the second point, and the best label to give these, if we want to use Islamic terms, are these people represent a typical Khawarij that we know of, that do not respect any Muslims or non-Muslims. And they have their own approach when it comes to dealing with other human beings, regardless of what religion believes or behavior they have. So long as you do not approve what they want, you don't submit to their wishes, then they think that they have the right to kill you or to damage your property or whatever valuable you have. The second point, which is important, there has been a lot of talk in the media and outside among communities that the reason for this recent crisis is what they have called a marginalization of a specific group in Iraq. And let me be very frank, they have been accusing the new system in Iraq, the new government, and in particular the Prime Minister, that he has marginalized the Sunni minority, the Arab Sunni minority in Iraq. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with the Iraqi demographics and so on, but let me give you some figures that would help you to understand that this is not the case. It is true that some members of the Arab Sunni